There it is. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Startup Canada Live. It is May the 4th today, 2017. May the 4th be with you and everyone else here. We have some amazing guests with us today. We're talking founder lessons. My name is Paul Stevenson. I am the proud co-founder of referralmortgages.com here in Ottawa and co-host of Startup Live. I'm really happy to be here. This is my boy, Tuan Nguyen, who will introduce himself in just one second. Startup Canada is the rallying community and voice for startups, entrepreneurship community across Canada. And that's one of the main reasons I love working with Startup Canada is because of the support that they give to each and every one of us, as well as all the communities across Canada. Shawna can definitely touch on the impact that they've had on her life as well as she speaks today. But I'm going to hand the mic over to Tuan and let him introduce himself. Tuan Solo.
What's up? My name's Tuan Solo, and I got Darth Helmet Mini over here with me. And yeah, really awesome to be here at Startup Canada Live. I mean, I love being involved for the same reason as Paul as well. Pretty much the community that creates and supports awesome startup companies around Canada. Wicked. And we're here. This is Ottawa. We're live streaming from National Office Startup Canada, cubicles, wherever you guys are. Hello. Cars, auto, make sure you stop. But welcome. Very, very excited to have you guys here. Super.
Yeah, so every Thursday on Startup Canada Live, we interview basically entrepreneurs that are experienced in different categories. So today we're talking founder lessons, and we brought in two amazing guests. Startup Canada Live is brought to you by Intuit. Intuit QuickBooks, Canada's leading provider for business, financial, and tax management solutions for SMEs, and obviously by MasterCard. Whether you need a card for purchases or you need payment solutions to help you better manage and track expenses, MasterCard has the right solution for your small business.
Well said, Paulus. B1 Kenobi.
And for everyone tuning in, you can, if you're already watching, obviously, we're available on Periscope, so Twitter, Facebook Live, and obviously on YouTube. And if you have questions, just hashtag StartupLive, and we'll be able to have them come right up on the screen, and we'll ask them directly to our guests.
Awesome.
So I want you to introduce our amazing guest today.
Yes. I mean, first of all, today's topic is awesome. Founder lessons you need to know. And we got two amazing people who can definitely speak to that. Our first guest joining us right here, right beside us over there, hello, is our lovely Shawna Tregunna. Yes. Shawna is the founder of Resume, which is short for relevant social media. Relevant.
That's why we shortened it.
Much
It's too hard to say.
Wars. Yeah, we should have had a beer. I would have been more on. Yeah, anyway, so, yes, Resume, and she's also the executive, I would say director over at Founder Institute here in Ottawa, so wicked stuff.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, and very excited to have you here, you know. I mean, Resume itself is a social media marketing agency, gives organizations an opportunity to develop their online presence, even if they don't have the internal resources, time, or talent necessary to create the social media marketing strategy themselves, yes. And we'll let you speak to Founder Institute in a little bit. It'd be really cool to hear a bit more about that. And joining us from the same province here, Ontario, over Vankleek Hill, we got Steve Beauchamp, Mr. Chewbacca, Wookie in the house. What's up?
Steve, I'm doing good.
Yeah, Steve is very well known for a product that we all love here, which is Beau's, a brewery based here right in Vankleek Hill. Beau's Brewery is passionate about delivering quality craft beer as an independent platform and continues to do so through employees, investors, friends, and family that own shares within the company, which is really unique. I mean, I could speak to Beau's and just watching how the company has grown in our community, and I want to thank you for your amazing leadership in terms of showing us how a company can be built and how awesome it can be in terms of forming a community around it. So, dude, thank you to you, and thank you to you both for being here on the show.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
So for everyone tuning in, as I said, if you have questions or if you just want to follow along, just look up hashtag StartupLive, and you'll be able to find everything you're looking for and more. So before we get into the actual, I guess, lessons that are going to be taught from our guests today, I want to ask you guys, very kind of off the chart question. If someone were to give your businesses $1 million today, what would you do with that, and how would that impact yourselves and your employees?
Oh, wow. Who's going first?
Throw you into the deep end here. Shawna, you're going to start. Ladies first.
Use the force.
So if somebody's to give me $1 million for the business today, It would actually be very fortuitous timing because we're doing some cool stuff with a bit of a pivot, and it would allow us to launch a lot faster. So definitely everybody would be getting raises staff-wise. Some ad dollars would definitely be spent, and it would speed up, some of the development of some cool technologies that we're building right now. Technology apps are hard and expensive to build, and we've got some of those in our back pocket, so that would speed that up.
Awesome.
And for yourself, Steve, what would you guys do with $1 million? Blank check.
We probably need around $20 million over the next 5 years. So this would mean I would have to beg a little bit less, and I would appreciate it fully. The next, I guess, big project we've got on the go is we're upgrading our brew house, and that'll happen probably over the next year. And then after that, we want to add a whole new packaging hall to the brewery. So we've got lots of plans that require lots of capital. So $1 million would be nice.
Okay, well, we'll talk to our people here at Startup Canada. I think there was, they were wondering because they're going to start writing you guys some checks, I think.
It's floating around here
Yeah,
somewhere.
exactly. So, Shawna, I'm going to direct the first question at you. You've been running Resume now for 6 years with a strong focus on social media. So why do you feel that's so impactful, and what kind of got you into that space?
Excuse me. Well, we got into the space because there was a need. So 6 years ago, social media wasn't, it was just emerging as sort of an industry and as a tool to get out into the marketing world. And I was very lucky, right place, right time, with the right level of curiosity, and was just playing around with stuff, and had people come to me and said, hey, if you figured this out for yourself, can you do it for me? I was actually working in corporate world and using Twitter to sell extended warranties to salespeople at CompUSA and Tiger Direct, which was super bizarre. But it gave me a reputation. People started asking me to do stuff, and consultancy turned into outsourcing, turned into business within a couple months without really me thinking about it too much.
Right.
And now, so that was just great timing, right place, right time, being lucky and being curious, and saying yes when the opportunity sort of showed up. I was like, all right, so there's a question. Let's take this risk. Let's see what happens. And then to answer your other question, how impactful is it now? Like now, social media is everywhere. We didn't have a lot of competitors when we opened up, 6 years ago. We were, very rarely did we go up against other proposals. We were, usually got the deals that we looked at.
Yeah.
Now there's, everybody's got a social media company, everybody's doing marketing, everybody's doing content, everybody's got a blog, everybody's got an email. But the nice thing is there's still a lot of business because the industry has just exploded.
Yeah.
Every business needs it. So it's a good time to be in the industry.
Yeah, when you think 6 years, you don't think it's that long. Like, it's like, 6 years isn't that long, but in internet years, that's
huge.
like 35 years, it's just not the same,
Yeah.
it's not the same world. So if you think of 6 years ago, social media, I think I've only had my Facebook account. I was an early adopter for maybe 10 years. So, even 4 years into Facebook, people were still, I look at pictures of this is from 6 years ago. I was like, oh my God, what was I doing putting that up? It's kind of, so yeah, there's been a lot of shifts. So the fact that you guys were kind of early adopters of that and saw the market there, I think speaks a lot to your team and what you've built. So what's your role now within the company today?
So I have an awesome team working underneath me that write most of the content, do a lot of the analytics, do a lot of the reporting. So I'm still the CEO, president of the company, and do a lot of the sales contacts, manage a lot of the client relationships, but a lot of the day-to-day is done by my awesome team, which is they're doing well. So I don't want to mess with something that don't work.
Very cool, very cool. I want to touch base on social media for sure for startups right after, but over to you, Steve. Got a question for you. Is can you describe, especially a lot of people watching are kind of in the startup phase or thinking starting a business. Can you describe the moment when you started the business or when you thought about the business, and then when you actually came to the realization it could actually be bigger than you thought? How did that mindset, and even what happened in your business from you to go from where you were just locally to explosive now?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the way I look at it is we've just been on a path since day one, and there hasn't really been sort of that moment where everything changed. When we first first opened up, we had two salespeople. It was my brother and my best friend Jamie, and we had one minivan that they would share. Had to do all of their sales calls and all their deliveries, so they'd have to work out between the two of them who was getting the van today, and then who was gonna be on the phone. And I remember Jamie used to he used to have to take his bike to do sales calls, and he'd stop around the corner so they wouldn't see him get off his bike before he came into the restaurant. But it seemed like every week they'd come back with one new account, and they did that week after week after week. And then at a certain point, we added in a third rep who was my sister to work kind of the Kingston area. And she started gaining an account a week as well. And then we added a Toronto rep, and he started getting an account a week. And it seems like for us, you go 11 years at that pace, we now have 3,000 customers in the restaurant industry in Ontario, plus all the LCBO stores and beer stores, and now some grocery stores. And we started doing the same thing in Quebec, and now started across the country. And when you add that up, the growth seems really explosive. But from our perspective, it's been a very straightforward model. Every week, if you're doing things right, you can hope for one new customer for each sales rep you've got. And we've never done that, sort of big financing round where we, sold a pile of the company to get all sorts of, money to do marketing and things like that. We've kind of had to earn our sales the whole way through, and so it feels explosive if you're looking at it from the outside, but from within, it's always felt like you got to put in the same amount of work every week.
And did it feel like it was bootstrapped for a while, or was there a kind of cash crunch for a period of time until you finally found
We're
cash?
still bootstrapping everything.
Yeah, nice. All right, Seth, love it. That's a great story. I actually had a question, but it totally slipped my mind because I was hoping you'd take maybe 5 minutes to answer so I could cover that question. Just being honest here, right?
Well, I have a question for both of you, but we'll start with.
I could maybe expand a little bit on that. When we started the brewery, we got about $150,000 for our equipment, which was enough to keep us kind of going for about 3 months. And so within 3 months, we knew we either needed to get new financing or we'd be out of business. Luckily, we were able to find that financing. And for the longest time, what we've been doing is we grow throughout the year. We go to the bank at the end of the year and say, this is how much we made. How much are you willing to leverage that if we reinvest it all into the brewery? They tell us how much they're willing to lend. We then create our shopping list basically out of that. Right. That tells us how much we can grow that year. And then the following year, we just repeat the process. So people quite often ask, I heard you're expanding, and it's like we've never stopped expanding because we've never had those deep pockets where we could sort of purchase enough equipment to last us through 2 or 3 years of growth. Sometimes it's not enough for like 6 months of growth, and that's it's one of those interesting things where when you've got a growth rate similar to a high-tech firm, but you're in, brewing, it's you need a lot of stainless steel to make more beer, and it all costs a lot of money. It's very, very capital intensive. So we've, 11 years in, and we're still, I feel like we're still bootstrapping it. We're paying for quality, so whenever there's an issue or something that's going to affect quality, we'll always shell out the money for the best thing we can afford or the best thing we can get. But quite often we do sacrifice things that might make things a little easier or might make things a little bit more efficient. Because we have to be very focused with how we spend our money, and we've decided that if we're going to spend cash, we're going to spend it on quality.
That's a great way to grow too. I mean, I just know, just listening to you speak, I think there's actually a good balance there between that comfort level where you know you have business coming in, you have the accounts, but then there's also still that there's not as much certainty. You have a pipe built, but it's not certain, right? It's not certain, so it keeps you invested in the business, which really speaks to the brand itself, right? It keeps you connected to it. And I'm sure, Shawna, you probably see the same thing with a lot of the startups you work with, where a lot of the CEOs or founders, they build it to a certain point, and they think that's when they're going to take a step back, but that's almost when they have to take a further step in, right? They have to be even more invested in the business, and that's kind of what I hear Steve saying. Like, do you have any examples, or do you run into that a lot, do you find, with startups when they're kind of going through that growth phase? Yeah,
so a lot of startups, like through Founder Institute, we work with a number of startups, getting them up and running, and super early stage. And the thing with early stage founders is they fall in love with their idea, and they think they need to do it all. And they'll do that to the point where they get burnt out, and then they're like, okay, well, I have to make a move, and by then it's almost too late.
Right.
And then it's a lot of work to make that move, because they have all of the corporate intelligence, they have all of the culture, they have all of that knowledge inside them, and they haven't necessarily documented it because they've always been the one doing the steps and all the processes. So then it becomes a big job to actually extract yourself from the business. But if you want to scale, you can't do everything, right? Like, if you start out and you're the salesperson and you're the accounting person and you're the team lead and the coach and the person who checks everything over, you're never going to be able to scale if you have to keep doing all of that and your business keeps growing. Just there's not enough time or hours or energy in the day. So that's the big challenge we see for a lot of our founders that are seeing high growth.
Yeah, so I mean, thank you for that, by the way. I wanted to bring us back to social media, because every company wonders about social media. And what are some of the lessons or mistakes or do's and don'ts for a startup to start this? Because of course, a lot of people say, is it a waste of time, waste of money? There's no direct leads coming. It's like they want to see that cause and effect relationship, right?
Well, and I think, and you hit the nail on the head. Like, you want to see a cause and effect relationship, but what the big challenge is a lot of startups that try to do their own social media, or get somebody that's sort of new. They come in and they just do social media. They set up a Twitter account, a Facebook account. They put up a few blog posts, and they're like, we did social media, but they didn't have metrics built in. They didn't have tracking. They didn't have goals. They didn't do the research to find out where their target audience is and what their competition is doing and all of that type of stuff. So we say flip it over a little bit. Go and figure out, first of all, the first thing that we talk to all of our clients and prospects about is, what are your business metrics? What are you trying to move? Because that might mean that we don't do Facebook, right? And that's a big shocker for a lot of people. And we're like, okay, well, we're going to focus on blogs and email list and some Google AdWords. And they'll be like, that's not social media. Like, well, that's social media if you want it to work for your particular business.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, right? They're like, oh, well, people are on Instagram, people are on Facebook, people are on Snapchat. We need to be there. But you only need to be there if it's relevant to your business.
If it's going to move your numbers. So and you have to have a strategy. You can't just post a picture and expect that to turn into sales.
Right.
So you need to figure out a plan for that to happen.
So staying on the topic of social media, for you guys, Steve, I'm sure you oversee a lot of the kind of marketing and things like that, or at least did at some point. How have your strategies changed, I guess, from when you guys first started to where you are currently and the following that you have?
Yeah, so we started with Facebook really early on. I think it was 2006, 2007, right after they started it. And the way that started was my brother. He started up a Facebook account and decided to create a group called the Beau's Army, because he thought it was funny. And a bunch of his friends joined, and then he showed me one day, look, there's this thing called the Facebook. and I saw it and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so our initial strategy with Facebook was, this is a great way to keep in touch with the fans that we've made and the friends that we've made through having this brewery. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do. And I think in a lot of ways we've tried to keep that spirit the same. But what's kind of our lesson out of this is that social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything, it's too many times seen as advertising and not enough time seen as a communication tool, which is what I think is where its real value is. So if one of our customers wants to know something from us, they reach out to us. If we want to get in touch with people, we have to be willing to have that kind of back and forth dialogue with them. The more it comes across as advertising, the less people care about it in general. And what's been interesting with us, so that Facebook group that my brother started, the Beau's Army, when Facebook decided they were going to have pages for companies, most companies deleted their group, and we kept ours and also created the Facebook page. And what's evolved out of that is we've got our page, which is very much sort of us broadcasting, these are the things that we're up to, and this is kind of the news that you need to know. Our Facebook group, the Beau's Army, has turned into a place where our fans have a conversation with each other. And so we don't actually put a lot of content up there. That's mostly our fans talking to each other and trading Beau's beers with each other and meeting up for different events. And it's become this whole thing where this community has developed out of that Facebook group, and it's been really wonderful to watch this kind of develop into its own thing.
So, again, going back to a question for both of you, on the topic of communities, I know, Shawna, you're running a big community and are part of a lot of communities. And for yourself, Steve, I know that, like I was speaking, I had the opportunity to interview Chris Phillips, founder of Big Rig, who also a local brewery. He was talking about the importance of having that community of brewers, I guess, that are kind of popping up, and you guys kind of working together, and a testament to what you did last year, not having to necessarily sell to these larger, the Molsons or the what's the other one? Starts with an A.
ABI, InBev.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Labatt.
No. But there's a couple big players, and obviously having that community of independent brewers is really important, right, for you guys for support. So from both of you, like, how important are your communities? Not necessarily the communities that follow you, but the communities that you're a part of. How impactful, and how does that benefit your business?
Well, that's a good question.
We'll start with you, Shawna. Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer that for any business person, any new startup, any business, as a founder, as an employee, your network is incredibly invaluable. Like that is the strongest tool you have in your toolkit. Who you know and those relationships that you develop, and how you develop those relationships is by giving. It's not by taking. It's not by asking. It's by collaborating. It's by sharing resources. And that I would say that a huge portion of Riso-Me success, like if you look at our social media and our marketing, we actually don't do a lot of marketing. Most of our business is inbound from client referrals and from our network. So when we go to events and we talk to people, that's where our sales come from. Not necessarily from that person that we met, but the person that they talk to 5 days later, which is like, oh, I need Twitter, I need Facebook, I need to figure out more sales. Like, oh, I just met this person, Shawna, you should talk to her. And that's how we get a lot of our sales. So that's super local. But then even when we start talking about our startups, and you start talking about investing, let's say that you want to do something with artificial intelligence and you want to develop that here, but you don't necessarily have a mentor here in Ottawa, or you can't find somebody that you connect with. It's so easy now to jump online and to build connections with people all around the world and develop those relationships, stay in touch, share information and resources. And I think those networks and those communities, the more you put into them, the more they're going to pay back in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about yourself, Steve?
Yeah, communities important not just from a building revenue perspective, but from I think a fulfillment perspective. And it's never as interesting to be the one diamond in a sea of junk. You want to be part of a community that has similar values, and it's one of the things that craft beer has been blessed with is breweries support each other. They believe in what each other's doing, and it's not like any other industry that I'm aware of where competitors go out of their way to help each other. We're seeing more and more the large brewers purchasing small breweries to try to infiltrate what it is that is special about us, and that's as Chris Phillips was saying to you, it is the biggest risk that we've got right now is I think our fans want us to behave like good people, and a lot of the success of craft beer has been based on the culture that we've created, and that culture is at risk. Every time one of these breweries gets taken over by a major, they're no longer in it to help everybody else out. They're now in it for themselves and in it to drive profit. And as much as the individual people in it might not have changed, the corporate ownership to me is super important. And that sense of community is the most important thing for us to preserve, because without that, craft beer just becomes a commodity. And once we become a commodity, we can't compete with the global brewers, because the economies of scale they have is just tremendous.
First of all, I think a really important point you pointed out was culture, corporate culture. I was wondering if both you can speak to that, because I find a lot of companies, when they start off, it's about the product, about the service. And can you talk to some of the founders who are listening right now about developing corporate cultures? What are some things you faced when you even had to come up and define what your corporate culture is, and then saying, yo, we got to invest in this, we got to build it, this is really where the value is coming in from? Like, can you speak to that to some of the founders watching right now? Either one of you, Shawna, maybe you guys.
Sure. So one of the things we always kind of try to look at. So first of all, for Riso, me, and when we were starting our business, it did take us a while to kind of decide like, oh, we need to stand for something more than just social media. And then we sort of sat down with the team and said, okay, well, what do you guys believe in? What is going to get you excited? What would you be proud of to be involved in? And does it align with everybody else in the group? And we kind of, as a group, decided, because we didn't start off with something, so we had that luxury. They were kind of able to come up with some common ground and say, okay, these are the things we're going to support and believe in. And we went really down the whole, support local, kind of angle with a bunch of stuff and a few different charities and stuff that we supported and actions that we did. But the triple bottom line that we talk about with our startups is kind of to bring that to the forefront for everybody. So yeah, it's not just about profits. It's about profits. It's about people. It's about planet. It's about all of these things, and you have to decide where you're going to stand. And people are going to be attracted to work with your company and do business with your company based on shared values, shared ideologies. So I think that is important. You're seeing more and more of that in businesses, and it is impacting the flow of business. If there is a specific cause or a specific type of community it is, right? Like, whether it's the crew that plays foosball all day and gets delivery sushi for lunch, or whether it's the people who have the vegan lunches delivered and do yoga together, that says a lot about your business, whether you mean it to or not. It really does, and it projects out to the community. So it's something that if businesses don't consider, the lack of culture is going to give somebody else a leg up.
That's a great answer. I find too, and just listening to both of your answers, your last couple answers, I think with any startup, when you first get going, you kind of have your plan and your roadmap, and then you get to a point where you're expecting to have, as a founder, certain revenues. You're like, okay, once we get to this point, I'll be able to increase my income or do whatever, right? Then you get to that point, and then you hit a roadblock of, well, we need to now grow, so I need to basically give up a portion of this increased equity or increased revenues that I was going to take to basically put into further structure. So then it almost like pushes out your projections even further, right? And I think that's why a lot of founders and CEOs stay invested so long, is because it takes a lot longer than you think to get to that point where you're at that comfort level. You're like, okay, now I can actually take a step back, because everything, I now have these multiple levels that are underneath me that are managing everything, right? And that's kind of, I'm hearing you guys kind of have that same sentiment. Am I wrong?
Yeah. I'm kind of smiling as you're talking, because I remember so many times talking with Dad, and we'd be saying, okay, well, we need to do this right now because it's important. And then someone would say, well, but what happens when we're at this level of sales? And we'd always say, oh, when we get to that level of sales, it just won't matter anymore.
Right.
Then we get to that point, and now we've got issues that are 10 times bigger than what we were originally facing.
Yeah.
And then we say, oh, well, we'll just do this now, and that'll get us to that point. And then what? And, well, we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And I've now come to the realization that there's never a point where you can sit back and relax. Like the point that happens is when you decide to stop growing your company.
Yeah.
Because growth requires investment, not just of capital, but of mind share, of effort, of everything. And until you want to just literally stop growing your company, there's just no opportunity to kind of sit back. And I view it as, growth isn't the most important thing for a company, but it does become the engine that fuels all of the cool things that you want to do with the company. So if you decide to stop growing it, you're really saying, well, we're just going to stay static. And if you want to stay dynamic, that growth is what allows you to do that. And I've given up on the theory of, it'll be
one
fine.
day.
Yeah, but I'm curious, Steve, like, how about disconnecting from the business to recharge? Right, I think that's something we don't talk about enough, is people are hustling and just like throwing everything into there. And then I've seen enough people go through things like health breakdowns and relationship problems. And so, like, how do you unplug running a business so that way you can recharge? And like, how do you have you come across that point where you're like, oh shit, oh snap, I gotta kind of take care of myself?
Yeah,
you say
and it was helpful for me that my business was the thing that I loved to do. I was an amateur home brewer before starting the brewery. I love craft beer. It's hard for me to really feel like I'm working most days because I could spend 18 hours and call it work, whereas someone else would call it their dream vacation. But it does require a lot of personal sacrifice. You don't have time for yourself when you're running a business. Your time is everyone else's time. Over the last couple of years, I've kind of recognized that I need to make sure that I'm exercising. I need to eat healthy. I need to sort of take care of myself. And somehow I am able to find time for all the things that I enjoy doing. I still play in a band. I play Dungeons and Dragons with my kids now.
Nice.
And a few other local brewers as well. I find it a way to fit my life around the things that I like doing, so that it never feels like I'm sacrificing this or I'm giving up that, because I'm doing the things that I like doing. And I think another sort of important thing to understand is, you talked earlier about founders feeling like they have to do everything. I'm a big believer in hiring the people to do the things that you don't enjoy doing. And the parts of the business that I love the most are the parts that I try to keep closest to me. Other parts are interesting from sort of an entrepreneurial perspective, but maybe aren't where my passion lies. And I try to let other people who have the passion for that side of it do that part for me, so that I don't drain myself.
So Steve oversees beer tasting, samples, and new development.
often people say, "So what do you do as CEO?" And I say, "Mostly I hang out and I drink."
Yeah. As you
Not a
should.
bad gig.
So I have a question, a personal question actually, directed at both of you. So I really saw the value in just like you said, building communities around things that you're passionate about, right? Even if it's aside from your business, just having a community there that knows what you do, that is like-minded. So I built multiple communities, but what I've found now is that I've invested so much time and energy into those communities that it does take away from my core business. So I don't want to sell these people because I am passionate about what I'm doing with them as well. But there's a certain point where you have to balance that. I almost, for it to be worth the time I'm putting into this community, I need to be getting something out of it for my other business because it's pulling away from that, right? Even if it's an hour or two a week, you're talking a full business day, 2 business days away from your business that you could even get 1 or 2 deals out of or 1 or 2 new clients. And that really, triples the value that you would be getting otherwise. So where do you find that kind of happy ground where you're out in the community doing things, but you're also not taking away from your core business?
I know for me, I struggle with that constantly. I tend to get tied up in stuff and super excited about stuff and throw myself in, and then at some point I'm like, wow, there are just not enough hours in the day. And so I'm still figuring out how to manage that, but finding partners that can sort of share that community with, that I can trust that community with, is if I do need to pull back, I don't know that I can still be involved without running things, right? I can still check in without contributing. So I think finding other people that can kind of take the reins from time to time has given me sort of that freedom to step away and then only take a look at the highlights afterwards, if that's what you're asking.
No, that's a great answer.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I find that you start a community or you join, especially if the ones that you've started. It's nice to empower the members of the community to evolve it, because the moment they contribute to its evolution, you kind of get to take a partnership role in it rather than a leadership role,
right?
In a leadership way, practically, actually. I think that's a great way to move away. And another way is just wondering who you're actually serving. So I had like 6 different groups 2 years ago, but now I'm 2 main groups, and they're both daddy groups, biz dads. And now within the 2 groups, I have every type of support I want. If I want social media support, Facebook ads, I got one dad. I want to support dads, right? I got a guy who does like graphics, a guy who writes, a guy, I got a guy who does mortgage, right? So I found that as long as I know who I want to serve and be around and contribute to, my community started focusing on that.
Right.
And then I found all the resources, support I needed within that group. Right.
So maybe I just need to be more direct in my needs from these.
Maybe.
people.
What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I struggle with that because I'm again one of these people that has a really tough time saying no. But I think for me, the things I invest my energy into are the things that I get the most fulfillment out of, and it doesn't usually feel like a drain on me. It actually feels like that's the thing that recharges me. And so for me, if I'm, for example, if I get to play a gig with my band, that gives me the energy for the next month to do all the other things that I do there. It does require sort of being more effective with the time you have, and there are times where I have to say, sorry guys, I just can't play that gig because I'm doing this other thing, and I can't cancel my business trip to do a show, but quite often I find ways to say, well, I'm on this business trip, why don't we see if we can't book a show in that town?
Yeah.
Or find a way to sort of, do I really need to be there both days, or can I make it back a day early? And you try to find ways to make it all work, and it helps to have a really good person that can help schedule all the crap that you put at them. But it is increasingly difficult in my life to find that extra 15 minutes to do that extra thing that you want to do because you just want to do it.
I think you brought up something really about your business trips. I think something I've openly admitted, but early on when I did a business trip, I kind of took the extra day and I kind of created work out of it, But the moment a lot of things starts happening in your life, you realize that I didn't need to spend 3 days in California. I could have done it in a day. rest and fly back, and I think when you create that urgency and get yourself to make the key decisions right away rather than having to go to 2-3 years of this, which is what I did, right? I think I would have created more time for the things I loved or to bring my business further.
If I could jump back in, there's no shame in scheduling me time, right? That was something that took me a long time to figure out, and it is not uncommon to open up my calendar and see walk the dog as something that's actually scheduled, because I'm I know that I got a crazy day, and if I don't carve out this time, and it's not because I need to go and walk the dog, but it's that I need time outside, away from my desk, unplugged, schedule in the gym. If I do not put it on my calendar and respect it just like a client meeting, it doesn't happen a lot of the time. I can't just say, oh, I'll go to the gym this week, or I'm going to go take a run, or I'm going to go and call my mom. I have literally scheduled those things onto my calendar. Because if I don't, then, they get always pushed to the bottom of the list. So, anyone who's struggling with that, schedule your personal time and respect it the exact same as a client meeting.
And when you're doing that, turn off your devices and disconnect too,
respect
right?
it.
I find for myself, I try now to take one night a week where I just, from say 7 p.m., I'll just put the phone aside, actually turn it off and disconnect. And you'll see, within 5-10 minutes, you're you're already drawn back to it, and you have to train yourself to just actually disconnect and be alone with yourself, right? Which is hard to do. I know we have about 10-15 minutes left, and we did have a couple Twitter questions come in. So let's whip over to those and see if what we can dig up here. So, what has been your biggest learning over the years as an entrepreneur? So, Steve, we'll toss that one over to you.
I think that's a tough one, right? I'm going to jump to trusting myself. There's been, I don't know how many times during the course of the brewery where some so-called expert has said, oh, well, what you've been doing is going to work only so long, and then you're going to have to do it this way, or you're going to have to change your approach. And I used to really listen to the experts when they'd say that, even though my gut was saying, well, no, this is what's working for me. I want it to continue working for me. And sticking to my beliefs has been, I think the thing that it didn't always make for the best decision, but it always made for the decision that I felt strongest about, and that usually carried us through, even when it wasn't necessarily the best decision. And having that belief in yourself, when everyone around you is saying, that doesn't make sense, or you shouldn't do that, or that's too risky, I think is really important. And I'm not saying don't listen to other people and don't get advice. I think the advice is really important, but you have to treat it as advice, not as gospel. And when you disagree with the advice you've received, you have to believe that you know what you're doing better than someone looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, we actually, to that point, last week I actually hosted, it was the first of its kind that I know of in Ottawa, but a meditation workshop for purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So it was all surrounding that exact thing, finding out what it is that you want personally, and then making sure that your business aligns with that. And sometimes, as you said, you get that piece of advice where it sounds good, but something just doesn't feel right about the decision, and sometimes you'll make that choice without fully asking yourself, am I okay with this decision? Is this actually what I think is best? And I think taking that step back and being able to look at that kind of big picture is sometimes difficult when you're in it, right? And that kind of goes back to taking that step back, and when do you take that step back so you can actually see the macro scale picture? And
leaders' intuition, that's such an important thing, is just to trust your intuition, I think.
And what about for yourself, Shawna? What's one of the biggest lessons or one of the biggest learnings that you've had?
Well, one of the biggest ones and hardest ones for me is definitely that you're going to screw up, and that's okay, right? Failure is going to happen in various scales throughout a business. And I remember early on being devastated. The littlest thing would go wrong, and I would be fetal position in bed saying I can never show my face in public again, because to me it was the end of the world. But if I didn't figure out how to deal with that and say, you know what? Yes, I screwed up. I made a bad choice. I made a bad decision. Something didn't work the way it was planned. But this is how we're going to fix it. And that is really the key, right? Stuff's going to go wrong, the best thing to do is to own it as quickly as possible and to fix it. You know, pivoting is the world of business and entrepreneurs, you know, embracing new paths and trying new things. You can't be afraid to fail as a leader. And then to further that, it's going to be okay if your staff fails. Your team is going to fail. Your contractors are going to fail. They're going to do things wrong. And you have to be a big enough person to say, let's take this as a learning point. We're gonna grow from this and work together. It's not, you know, you screwed up, no more job. And that, when it's your baby and it's your money coming out of your pocket to pay this person's salary that just costs you money, that is a really tough pill to swallow. But that move will not only make your employees stronger and your company stronger, but they're going to be more invested. They're going to be more interested to do it better. They're going to learn from that. If you just strike them down, you're wasting your time that you invested in them, in the project. So there's so many negatives about it.
You're hurting yourself. Yeah.
So those are like, failure and mistakes are going to happen. It's how you deal with them that really defines, you know, who you are as a person and a leader.
I have a funny story. I posted this on Facebook. My son, my youngest son is 6, and he was over Monday night. We were making dinner, and I had this raw piece of chicken, and it fell on the floor. And I was sitting there, I tried to stop it, it hit the ground. I was like, oh shit, you know, like I was upset. I went to pick it up, and I'm like, oh, and he's like, what's wrong? I said, drop the chicken, this and that. He says, oh, this is from a 6-year-old. He says, don't worry, Dad. He's like, everyone makes mistakes. I was like, what? So I pick up the chicken, I'm like washing off, I'm like, what'd you say? Like kind of laughing. He's like, everyone makes mistakes. He's like, mistakes are beautiful. You know, it's like, and that to me was like, holy shit, this kid's got it. He understands what's going on. This is like, but it speaks to that point, right? It's like, in business, you're going to make mistakes as you try to grow. You do what's best, but you just make that, you kind of take that shift. These are actually, I wrote this down Monday, and this is speaking to your point. So as an entrepreneur, anyone listening, as a founder, whenever there's a problem, it says, what am I worried about? These are 4 questions. What am I worried about? What can I do about it? What am I going to do about it? And when am I going to start doing it? So this is like 4th. That's the easiest way to solve any problem. It sounds very simple, but take all that data, as you guys said, take all the information, the advice, analyze all of it, figure out what you have, what are my options, make the decision, and then figure out when am I going to start acting on this, right? Because that's how you're going to get over that hump or get over that issue.
For sure.
So I just thought of that when you talked about mistakes. I'm like, oh, this is from a 6-year-old, but he's got some insight. He's teaching me.
I wish he talked to me early on. Mistakes are beautiful is a message I could have used very much earlier in my career.
Let's take another look at the Twitter question here and see what we have left. We have a few more minutes.
What is your mantra as an entrepreneur leader? What keeps you focused, grounded, and motivated?
Mistakes are beautiful.
All right, let's throw this over to Steve.
I think it would probably be if it's, I got 2, I guess. If it's not fun, don't do it. And if it was easy, everyone else would do it and it wouldn't be fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Shawna? What do you think?
I don't know. I've just got Pinky in the brain. Like, tonight we're going to take over the world. In the back of my head. There's so many. Like, I have a journal that I write down, like, all of these, you know, sort of thoughts and quotes and things that I'll go back to anytime that I'm kind of a little bit lost and not knowing exactly what I want to do next. I'll go to a list of things. Yeah, I would just say, I don't know that I have one that I can go back to, or even that I'm like following right now. Right now we are in a big thing of change, so I would probably say embrace change, you know, fail fast, and and move forward. But yeah, get comfortable with change. That's probably
that's awesome.
One of the ones I would say.
I love the fun one because you know, people have asked me, Tuan, like, how do you start a business? And I said, well, all 4 of mine have been based on just having an absolute blast doing something, right? And we never really thought about, you know, the taking over the world by any means. And 2 of them had, you know, when it went national, we thought, wow, dude, we're actually going national with this thing. This is awesome. And we just kept going, having more and more fun, right? So I really do believe in the fun factor. And that bleeds into, or bleeds, whatever right way of saying it, to culture, which, Steve, you talked earlier. And I want to share with the audience, I work with dentists and doctors, primarily dentists, and I have a dentist buddy and client in the States. And, you know, he loves karaoke so much, and he at one point said, I'm miserable going to my own clinic. I don't like it. So then he built a karaoke room inside his practice, right? In his patient hall, the patient waiting room. And what happened was it attracted a bunch of karaoke hygienists and karaoke receptionists.
Right.
And even one of my old companies, everyone had to do a dance routine in the office because we had a graffiti in the office. And I did the first dance routine and then a few people. But then I attracted techie, developers, salespeople who all have the dancer mentality. You know what I mean? And so then that became our culture. Like, we're the dancing technology software company, right? It was just, that's who we were. And we had a blast, right?
Yeah.
And our CTO was a DJ, this Russian DJ that DJ'd Russian parties, right? It's like crazy, right? So fun is like so much odds. Like, that's the key to me to business.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think for us too, like, we kind of have trouble finding that balance too because we're in finance. Like, you want to have fun, but you also need to kind of keep that professionalism, right? Because people want you to have fun, but they want you to have too much fun if you're dealing with their finances. With beer, it's you got a little bit more leeway. It's like they want you better be fun, you know?
We've got all the leeway. Yeah.
Let's throw your money against the wall and see what sticks.
That's so crazy. So I think we're coming up to the end of the show here. So I just wanted to leave you guys, I guess in closing, what do you have going on right now? What's the biggest success or challenge you're dealing with, I guess, in your business? And where can people find you if they want to keep in touch with you? Shawna?
Oh, sure. So resome.com. If you want to check us out there, I'm Shawna at resome.com. We're getting ready for a pivot. Well, it's not really a pivot. We're adding on a second business unit, hopefully by the end of summer. So you're not going to see too much from us in the next coming months, but hopefully by the end of the year, you'll be hearing a lot more. From the Founder Institute side, one of the other reasons we're kind of quiet on the Resome front is because I've got all my energy in our second cohort. So we have our second cohort of founders working on their business ideas. So we take businesses from ideation to MVP, minimum viable product, in less than 4 months. This is the second cohort we'd run here. We had 9 graduates from the first one last year, and some amazing companies were born there. And yeah, it is super exciting. So definitely check out the Founders and Founder Institute. There's some awesome companies that are going to definitely make a mark in Ottawa and the world.
I like it. Ottawa's on point right now. I like it.
On fire, man, like burning desire.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Steve?
Yeah, we got a lot on the go. So we're just about to launch our first full-time IPA called Full-Time IPA.
Yes.
That'll be hitting the shelves May 11th. We're going to be opening up a brand new division for the brewery probably by the end of the month. We've been doing a lot of R&D on one existing brand, so we'll be launching sort of a new version of an existing beer in June. We've got all of the Canada 150 celebrations that we're part of, the Ottawa 2017 stuff. So that's keeping us hopping as well. And, just in general, having lots of fun. We're sponsoring the Ottawa Race Weekend.
I'm running in that. Yeah, that'll be good.
Weekend. And on a whim, I signed up to run a half marathon. I've never run before, so that should be interesting.
We'll see you wheeling down the side of the road.
Yeah, exactly. So there's kind of never a slow moment at Beau, so there's lots we're working on.
That's great. And don't forget about Oktoberfest, right? Coming up.
Oktoberfest in September. Everything's coming up.
I'll be there this year. So thanks so much to Shawna and Steve. We really appreciate you guys coming on. For anyone who is tuning in, next Thursday, May 11th, we're going to discuss, well, we won't, but the discussion will be technology trends to stay ahead. Hosts are going to be Anastasia Valentine from, Versature. I'm drawing a blank. Versature. And Midias Sheikh Hassan. And with guest experts Nicholas Din and Nunzio Presta. And you can register for that event on Eventbrite, or again, just keep track of #StartupLive.
Yeah, and you can also stay informed of all the latest opportunities, announcements, entrepreneur events by following Startup Canada on Twitter, liking us on Facebook, following us on Instagram. A new startup podcast drops every Thursday on iTunes, Startup Canada Live here in Periscope. And, why should I finish? This is way too much fun. So, guys, thank you again for joining us here. And if you want to contribute to Steve's $19-20 million pursuit, please do, because I'm inspired, and let's rock it.
We're
Peace
not
out.
giving up any equity, though.
Okay. Just beer. We'll take beer.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
Give it to us, though.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Peace, guys.